Hello, welcome to the first video lesson. Today we're going to talk about section 1.1, which is solving simple equations. LO stands for learning objectives. So the objective is that by the end of this lesson, you would know how to solve one-step linear equations. Here's some key vocabulary that you need to know, so you can go ahead and pause the video now and copy them down if you'd like. Okay, so we'll start by looking at example 1a. They want us to solve x minus 3 equals negative 5. Okay, the basic rule of equations is that whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other side as well in order to keep it equal. And so what we want to do is we want to use inverse operations to cancel things out so that you can isolate the variable. So in this problem, we want to cancel out the minus 3 so that the x could be all by itself. So what cancels a minus 3 is a plus 3. And again, we have to do that to the other side as well. Okay, now once you've done that, you can figure out what happens. The minus 3 and the plus 3 becomes 0. So now you just have x by itself. And then negative 5 and positive 3 makes negative 2. Okay, so the thing that I did in red is what we call the addition property of equality. And that's the justification that they ask for. Okay, looking at example 1b. 1b, now we're dealing with decimals a little bit. Hopefully you're not afraid of decimals. Okay, again, our goal here is to get the y by itself. So to do that, we need to cancel out the positive 2.8. What cancels out a positive 2.8 is a minus or negative 2.8. Okay, so by doing that, the positive 2.8 and the negative 2.8 become 0, and now we have y by itself. So 0.9 positive combined with negative 2.8 is going to give us negative 1.9. Okay, and now this time, since we subtracted on both sides, this would be called the subtraction property of equality. All right, at this time, I want you to work on the following 3 problems. They're called monitoring progress problems. They're actually in the book, and so periodically I'll ask you to work on these problems in your notes, pause the video, and then after you work on it, you can unpause the video to see the solution. So the 3 problems I want you to try are n plus 3 equals negative 7, g minus 1/3 equals negative 2/3, and negative 6.5 equals p plus 3.9. All right, pause the video now, and then when you're ready, continue. Okay, now you can check the solutions, pause if you need to make sure you got it right. If you got it wrong, look over the steps and see if you can figure out what you did wrong. Okay, next we will move on to example 2 in the book. So example 2a, we've got negative n over 5 equals negative 3. Okay, now this one's a little bit tricky. What I would recommend here is when you have a fraction like this with a negative in front of it, I don't know if you know this, but you are allowed to assign that negative either to the top or to the bottom, or you could leave it in the middle. In this case, I think it would be nice and easier if we assign it, if we assign it to the bottom. Okay, and the reason is because now I know that in order to get n by itself, the inverse operation of dividing by negative 5 is to multiply by negative 5. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 5. And what that does is the negative 5 times, and then the divide by negative 5 becomes positive 1. So that leaves you with n. And then you have negative 3 times negative 5, which is positive 15. Okay, continuing to b, we have pi times x equals negative 2 pi. Now hopefully you guys have seen that pi symbol before. Just to remind you, pi is simply a number. Pi is not a variable, it's a number. technically it's like 3.14, you know, and then so on. Anyways, just like you would, if it was a 3, the way you would get rid of the 3 that's multiplying the x is to divide. So in the same way, you would divide both sides by pi. And what that does is it makes this pi divided by pi becomes a 1. So you have 1x, and then pi divided by pi becomes 1 over here, so negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then finally in C, we have a decimal one, so 1.3z equals 5.2. So it's 1.3 times z. So the way we cancel that is to do the opposite, which is to divide. So when you divide, that becomes 1z, and then 1.3 goes into 5.2 4 times. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to write down 3 more problems for you to try, and then I want you to pause it and then unpause it when you're ready. Okay, there are the problems. Go ahead and press pause now and do the problems. Okay, here are the results to your practice problems. And now we will continue on to the last example. Okay, so in this problem, they give us this information about Usain Bolt. He won the 200-meter dash with a time of 19.32 seconds. They want us to write and solve an equation to find his average speed to the nearest hundredth of a meter per second. Now, one thing you need to know about this is that there is something called the distance formula. So the distance formula is distance is equal to rate times time. Okay, distance equals rate times time. So if we take the information that they give us in the problem, they tell us that it's a 200-meter dash, so that's the distance, 200. They tell us that it took 19.32 seconds, so that's the time, 19.32. And then R is the speed, which is what they want us to find, right? Find his average speed. Okay, so the equation we're working with is 200 equals 19.32 R. So the way we solve this is we divide both sides by 19.32. Okay, and if you work this out, you'd have to use a calculator for this one. Okay, it works out to be about 10.35. Okay, so the answer of what his average speed is, let's work this out a little bit. The rate is approximately 10.35 meters per second. Okay, that concludes today's video lesson. Tomorrow in class, we will work on a bunch of problems to keep practicing this stuff. Have a good day.